Okay, you tagged your deer. Now, it's time to finish the job and get your game to the table. Good venison starts in the field. Here to talk about shot placement, recovery, and proper handling is Jeff Pritzl and Larry Bonde. Jeff is a Northeast Wildlife District Supervisor for the DNR. I'm telling you, we pulled out the big guns for this one. He's hunted for 38 years in 11 counties all over Wisconsin. Larry is the chairman of the Wisconsin Conservation Congress. He's been a serious deer hunter with bow and gun for the last 41 years. He's harvested over 60 deer, including the second largest non-typical archery buck for Manitowoc County. And get this, he's been inducted into the Manitowoc County Conservationist Hall of Fame. Plus, Larry's an expert in home venison processing who will show us a variety of ways to process your deer. We're heading to Manitowoc to see how he does it.
So welcome to Wild Wisconsin. This is the second edition of Handling the Harvest, where we're going to actually take a deer that was been harvested and turn it into pieces and parts by processing it and getting it ready for the freezer.
So I always like to have a nice clean rag on hand. That way you can keep your hands clean when you want to touch the meat, and it helps you pull. It gives you really good grip on the animal. Everybody has different ways of skinning. I know that there's a lot of people who saw the technique of pulling them by the head, head first down. And I've tried it. I go to a hunt camp up in Michigan, and that's their favorite technique. But you got to have a really good, sturdy beam above, because I've also heard stories where people have pulled rafters out of their garage by doing that. I don't want to be the one around when that happens.
First couple times it's going to feel awkward, but these little tricks like you just showed with using a rag to grab it instead of your hand so your hand doesn't get all slippery are some of the things that I think just makes it go that much
little
smoother.
tiny things. This is one, put the deer's front legs between your legs. It keeps it from spinning so that it doesn't turn around. You don't need an extra person with you. The one trick that I've always noticed is people have a hard time keeping the flank on the deer. The flank is that thin layer of skin that almost all the time when people are pulling the hide, it stays with the animal. And if you just loosen it a little bit, work your thumb in there. Once you get underneath it, you feel you have a pretty good grab on it. You work yourself up. It's connected with one cord all the way to the back leg. And right here it is. Now that flank will stay on that animal all the while I pull.
Yep, that's one trick I remember from the last time. I've been doing it that way and saving that flank meat and keeping it off of the hide. That way you've got a cleaner hide when you're done too.
So now because I pull the flank properly, see how nice that works?
Yeah, that's the point where I remember I pull the hide down and all this red flesh comes with it. Yeah.
The other thing is having these nice little handy devices you can get at any sporting goods store. These gammels where you can adjust the animal to the right height, and it makes your work a lot easier when you're working at a decent level.
So now you're seeing where this deer was hit and run through with an arrow, and good example of a well placed shot right behind the shoulder. And this one was of course this is archery season. So this was, and you can even tell just from that exit wound that was a two-bladed arrow.
It's always good to know when you're doing an archery deer if the broadhead was a complete pass-through or if the broadhead might be in the animal yet. Because I remember in my days when I worked at the butcher shop, it was always nice to have forewarning when a hunter brought in a deer that they knew a broadhead was somewhere in this animal yet, so you could be a little bit cautious, not that you ran it across your fingers.
Sure, yeah, you've got extra hazard hiding in there. But this is something else I'm going to try to remember where, wait till now to take the front legs down because you've got extra handles there. I tended to take those off right away.
So anytime when you notice that the meat starts pulling along with it, that's the time you want to use your knife for a little assistance.
So when I hang the deer up, and first thing is I think about taking off all of the unnecessary parts, and I might take the head off along with the legs. And you've left the head on. What's the rationale behind waiting?
I always figured that, again, exposing the animal to more hair. All the cutting I'm going to do is going to be on the inside of the hide, so there'll be fewer hair. If I cut that first, the hair would automatically get exposed to the meat. Okay, when you get to this point, you can use a saw if you want to. It makes life a little bit easier, but if Every joint in the entire animal can be taken apart with a knife. And the easy way to find it is you work yourself down to the ears. And you'll see it sort of exposed. It's like a ball. And as you can see, there's no hair at all. Everything, that was the purpose about not cutting it off first. So now you have your animal that's skinned. Another little trick that I learned is I have minimal hair on it. The big chunks of hair you do want to remove manually, but a real simple way to get rid of the small pieces of hair is a basic little torch. And just singe them off. Okay, when you get to this point, this is the rag you use for all the pulling the hide to touch the outside of the deer, and sometimes it's muddy when you're hunting. You know, your deer might be dirty. Take that rag, I always throw it aside, and I find myself something nice and clean. Okay. And then wash your hands with some soap and water. Make sure that your hands are clean, because now you're working with the part of the animal that you're going to be consuming. You want as few amount of bacteria on it as possible. So what I like to do is start with taking off the basic outside layers that are clean meat. So you grab your flank and sort of disconnect it from the fatty tissue. And I always like to have two tubs. Two tubs are two areas to place things. So like this is all clean meat. That's going to be trim. So I'll put that over in a pile here.
So when you say clean, you mean clean from a lot of sinew and fat and that kind of stuff?
And it's ready to be put into a grinder if you're going to grind it right away. If you want to put it in the freezer to make sausage or whatever, it's ready for that. But you get most of the bulky bad material off. The best idea is to keep things nice and handy for yourself. And what you're going to see when you do this side is you'll see some of the bloodshot from the wound from the arrow. And you'll understand what I mean about being able to take it off. When animals like this, the muscles are more stretched out. So it makes it a little bit easier to follow these seams.
Sure.
So as you can see now, I'm running into that bloodshot. That you don't want in your trimmings for your ground meat or sausage. So when animals stretched out like this, you can take some of these sinew off, some of that cordy stuff, hit these flank lines. Everything's on a seam on these animals. And you can get some of that bloodshot off, so that when later on you take these pieces and you put them on your table, you don't have to worry about that extra blood oozing out. You're always going to have some. If you can get most of the bad material off when it's hanging here, it'll make your rest of your job a lot cleaner, a lot neater.
Yeah.
And when you have your animal hanging like this, you look at right about where the hip start. There's one on each side. Put your knife in. Follow the bones a little bit. Follow the backbone. And always put a little bit of slight pulling pressure on it, and your tenderloin comes back out. You do have to do some cleanup, and we'll do that a little bit later. But now we're just going to tear things apart. Okay, and same thing on the other side. Everything's a duplicate, just in reverse. I always keep telling people, when the bones are on one side, they're on the opposite side on this one. Mm-hmm. So here again, with a little bit of pressure, you can see your tenderloin just falling right out.
Well, in these tenderloins, I think it's because of the way it was packed to keep cool, looked nice and moist yet. I know some people like to take them out as soon as they're field dressing the deer, because once they're exposed to air, they can get on the outside, get dried out.
And typically they're lined with a layer of fat. And what I like to do is leave that fat in, and it's separated from the intestines and stuff, but that fat will protect it from drying out as well.
Yeah.
So the next two pieces you want are the back straps. And again, here's your hip line, and they go on both sides of the backbone. So you put your knife in, go down each side of the backbone. You'll feel the pin bone with your knife right in here. That's the name for the hip bone. And you just drop that line to that point, go to this side, do the same thing. And on these nice young animals like this is where you can almost put your knife aside, and you can do a lot of the work with your hand. By taking the sinew, separating it from the nice lean muscle of the loin. And then just take your knife a little bit to work it off the ribs. And you get to this point, it goes all the way to the neck. So this would be like your sirloin, your porterhouse, your T-bone, your ribeye. So again, like we did the other one, use your hand a little bit, do some of the work to get rid of the sinew. And you run your finger, it's all seams. So you run it in there, use a good sharp knife. I like good sharp knives. You can buy all different brands online. A good butcher quality knife, 5-6 inch blade, nothing too much longer. And just use that to assist yourself, because when it's good and sharp, you don't have to worry about cutting your fingers, and you do a good job of cutting the meat correctly.
Yeah, and this part, like I said, that comes out so nicely.
All in one piece, and it falls out like a nice strap.
So
like
all
that.
of those different cuts come out of what you refer to as the back strap.
Right.
Okay.
It's all part of the loin or back strap. And we'll dismember some of the sinew on a little bit later, but we'll put it aside because for right now we just want to get the big main cuts off, and the detail work we'll work on a little bit later. If you have good clean water that you can flush your animal out as soon as you get it harvested, then you take a good garden hose and clean all this inside stuff out. Then if there's any fecal matter from the intestines being open, or if it's just dirt from the forested floor as you're dragging the animal out, you can get all this off and utilize a lot more of the meat. But if not, as you can see, they didn't have an opportunity to get this one flushed out real good. You want to remove that stuff because there's bacteria in there, and that'll give you some problems in your sausage making process, and meat doesn't have to cure if there's too many bacteria in there, and you'll end up throwing away or spoiling some of your meat. But you're better off throwing away that pound right now because it's dirty or full of bacteria than putting your sausage and throwing away the $100 or 100 pounds worth of meat that you just paid to have processed. So there's a couple of different ways that I've seen people go about it at this point. First of all, I'll take off this extra little scrap meat tight to the bones here and deal with that over when we're working on our cutting board. There's some people that don't care about roast. There's a real quality roast that you can get out of here, and another nice lean piece here. And if you take the animal part right here, it's sort of hard to do a more detailed job on it. So what I like to do is you follow your ribs into the spine on both sides. So if you follow your ribs in, you'll hit the. Oh! I'm drop it on the floor. So you can take this right now, and you can put it on your table and use it as boning on the board a little bit later.
Easier to work on that way.
So now we have everything boned out. It's time to move to the table. We're going to be moving everything over there, doing our finer cuts, taking all the muscles into individual pieces, and showing you what you can make out of it.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Let's take it over to the table and start making steaks and pieces.